so welcome to this dual round of British theatre history. Now, this auditorium is very, very special. I said it's unique. What you see in here is all original. Well, not quite. It was very different when this theatre first opened. Now, you look behind you, you see we have 3 tiers. Originally, this theatre only had 2 tiers. So what we call the gallery today, that didn't exist in 1766. The ceiling was completely flat. So you people up there, hello up there, are you all right?
Very good, thank you.
That is the centre of the circle today. That originally was the gallery. This level here, the dress circle, between the wonderful pillars there you have around you here, that's where the rich people used to sit when this theatre first opened, in the status of all the boxes. So in the centre there, I know that young lady there. Hello, how are you? In the back there in yellow, you all right? So that box there, if you look on the wall behind you, between the pillars, you will see different names. So if you bought your ticket to see Touching the Void, you've got to give us a hug, because that's our current production. We're doing this next week behind the safety curtain here. If you bought your ticket from the box office today, when you buy that ticket, it will say on the ticket you're sat in dress circle A12, and it will say on the bottom of that ticket, the seat you're sat in originally was called the Shakespeare box. So they were all named after Macready, various actors, playwrights of that time, all the boxes were named after. Where you're sat today down here, and obviously going back to its original name, the Pit, this is where the riff-raff of Bristol used to sit all those many years ago. Down here it just rows and rows and rows and rows of very long, thin wooden benches. They used to cram many people in here, because when this theatre first opened, they didn't have any fire officers, no health and safety officers, and they used to get 1,000 Bristolians in here originally. Today, with today's standard of seating and legroom, because we've got bigger as human beings, we seat about 560, although that capacity today can expand itself, because when Tom Morris came in here, one of the great things that he loved about the history, when he read the history, was, and I'm so thrilled that he's done this, in its original design, before the gallery was added in, the stage did have a big thrust on it, and we put that back. So Tom's brought that, because when I first started working here, as you can see where the archway is here, that's what we call the proscenium arch, where that jukebox is situated, that's how far the stage used to come out. So if you sat in these boxes here, on the side of the dress circle, you know, after 1972, you had a real restricted view of the actual stage. Until when they came in and, you know, had to take the challenge on saving this theatre and reimagining and making it work for today, he thought, well, it'd be great to put the thrust stage back on and to bring the actors back out on its original design. Because how that changed, because if you are true in history, the actual front of this stage, ladies and gentlemen, actually officially came out here. When you come around here, you'll see there's a little square here, cut out in the side of the wall here. And that's where, excuse me, lights, that's where the original support beam was, which actually supported the front of this stage. So when we refurbished, obviously, to get 560 seats in here, to get the full capacity of volume, we had to bring it out, but not bring it out as far as it did come out, because to lose this row of seats is quite important revenue to keep this theatre going today. So it is hurt. So as an actor, the 25 people here that are booked on this special, so I want to go and join me in a moment to actually stand on this stage in a moment. We're going to have a bit of a performance. I'm going to actually ask you to perform to get a feel of what it's like to stand on this historic stage. So it's nice that we've actually, because Tom said, let's put the thrust stage back on. I'm so pleased. But now, if you get the chance to see a show, you sit in the boxes, you're on stage with the actual performers, and it's so much better then for the people sat here in the side dress circle. Because how that changed, because obviously the theatre through its history had a very, very shaky start and then got established. But of course, Bristol's very first theatre, the Jacob's Wells, that had to close down at the end of the 17th century, the small hut out on Jacob's Wells Road. So people then on the boundary came into this theatre. Obviously the Theatre Royal Bristol was known then. And they got 1,000 people in here, but they were turning people away. So in 1800, they had a bit of a brainwave. They said, let's increase the capacity. So they raised the ceiling in 1800, and then added on the gallery. So that's when the gallery was added in. And it's amazing, because this is classed as the Georgian theatre, but everything out here is Victorian. They were always adding things on. So the thing around the proscenium arch is the only bit now that is still left its joints. Everything out here is all Victorian. So the ceiling was raised in 1800. Then, of course, other theatres came around. There was the Bristol Hippodrome, Bemister had a hippodrome, there's the Empire Theatre. And, of course, this was called the Theatre Royal Bristol in those days. But then they decided in the city of Bristol to open up a new Theatre Royal. How dare they? but they did. And that was based up on Park Row. So if you go up Park Row today, just past the University of Bristol Theatre Collection before you get to the top of Park Row where the University of Bristol is based, those that know Bristol very well, there's an Esso garage there on the left-hand side, and there's an AA building next door. Well, on that site, that's where the new Theatre Royal was based. Eventually, it changed its name to the Prince's Theatre. And sadly, that theatre got completely destroyed when Bristol was bombed heavily in the Second World War. And that was as big as the Hippodrome. But of course, when that was called the new Theatre Royal, I had some people on the tour yesterday, and they said their grandparents referred to this theatre as the Old Gap, because they called this the Old Theatre Royal. It was a local nickname given to this theatre. And it went from success to success. It was put up for auction. And there was a plan at one stage to rip all this out, because the Cooper's Hall next door was doing so well with the fruit and vegetable sales. They thought they don't need this old theatre in King Street. Thank goodness that never happened, or we wouldn't be here today. And of course they then engaged, and at that time, the Arts Council of Great Britain, which had a very different name, they were called CEMA, which stood for the Creative Entertainment for the Ministry of Arts. They had a very good working relationship in London at the Royal Victoria Theatre, otherwise known as the London Old Vic. Laurence Olivier, John Gielgud, Ray Bridgerton, all those great actors were in that company. And they approached that company with a bit of a brainwave. They said, we'd like to help set up the first independent state theatre company of Great Britain. How would you like to get involved and have a sister company to run alongside you? Yes, they would. So they went around the whole of England. Of course, this theatre was available. They thought, Bristol's not too far from London. They then had a bit of a battle to convince the local authorities this was going to work. So they agreed to put on 2 trial seasons of plays. If they then got a good return at the box office, they would get the green light. So they brought a lovely actress down called Dame Sybil Thorndike onto this stage. They got a very good return. So on the 19th of February 1946, the sister company to the Old Vic Company in London was then created. Only seemed right to call it the Bristol Vic Company. They appointed a young man called Hugh Hunt. He was the first artistic director. He brought a company of actors here into this theatre: William Devlin, Pamela Brown, Cyril Cusack, Wendy Hillier, Rosalie Crutchley, Margaret Scott. And a young actor who just finished doing his service in the Second World War went on to become one of our comedy greats. That was a very young Kenneth Connor, before he became a member of the Carry On team. And the first show, ladies and gentlemen, they performed here as a company was The Beau Stratagem by George Farquhar, and set off the legend of the Bristol Vic Company. Laurence Olivier, that very year, came down at the opening, and at the back of the dress circle there, he suddenly had a wonderful brainwave, and what a wonderful thought that was. He said, this is great, a new company is being set up. I propose there ought to be a theatre school to train actors to run alongside it. And it didn't actually start until October, so on the 21st of October 1946, that was when the Bristol Open Doors Theatre School was then created, a place to train actors. Edward Stanley, who was the first principal, had his office here, but there was nowhere to train the actors here. And it's quite interesting when you read into our history, because apart from producing some of the best plays and some of the best actors ever, the other strong association we have through our history is with fruit and veg. Because the Bristol Open Doors Theatre School was based around the corner in 1946, the only premises they could get on top of was on top of a fruit shop just off of Baldwin Street. And it was based there until 1954, because the company was well established. And in 1954, when Dennis Carey was the artistic director, that was a great year for this company, Bristol, because it really established the company really, really well. Because in 1954, Dennis Carey, John Moody, handing over from one artistic director to another, he said, I've read a brand new play. It's written by an unknown American. He said, it's very good. I think we ought to do it. It was its European premiere. They cast Annette Crosbie, Philida Law, and Edward Hardwick. The play was written by an American, somebody called Arthur Miller, never heard of before in those days, and that play was The Crucible. That started here in 1954. And then that set off a very strong connection with Arthur Miller, because as a company, the Bristol Vic, since then, commissioning his work here, getting his work established in this country, we have done several European premieres. 2 I've been involved in personally. One was the Archbishop's Ceiling, which we did here. That was in the mid-1980s. Then in the 1990s, something very, very special happened, because we commissioned a wonderful play, which was a collaboration between ourselves and the National Theatre of London, and that was a production called The Man Who Had All the Luck. That premiered here, and it was very, very special. And for me, in 35 years of working in this theatre, to actually meet that playwright himself, Arthur Miller, the man also who was once married to Marilyn Monroe, I have to say, was quite something for me. Actually, he came over here, he attended all the rehearsals, and then the production was built here, transferred to London, played at the National Theatre. And I always remember Arthur Miller at the time, we all met him, he was a lovely man, and lovely, like a gentle giant he was. He was always very jet-lagged, but he loved being over here in this wonderful theatre with Paul Elman directing. And as a production, it had great acclaim. In fact, I'll tell you a little bit of a secret, because in those days, with regional theatre, it was very difficult to get national press out of London into Bristol. It really, really was. And at the start of this show, Ian Glenn and Christopher Etheridge, who were in that show, we had an original 1950s Cadillac car on stage. And Paul Elman, the artistic director, it all started with Ian working underneath. And Adrian Bray was the stage manager, and he thought, I know how to start this play, we will illuminate the audience. So Adrian Bray was underneath the car seat, hidden away, and the play started, and the car would turn over, and the car lights would come on full beam and illuminate the audience. That's how this production started. It was an amazing production. It played here for a 4-week run, and I remember on one Saturday matinee, Adrian turned the car, the ignition over, and it wouldn't start. So he turned it again. Luckily, it started. He was a little bit worried. So after the matinee had finished, he stood on the side and said, I'm really worried about the starting motor on this car. He said, we've got another performance tonight, so I'm really worried on what to do. And Fred Stacey, our wonderful technical manager, turned around and said, well, there's a simple solution. He said, what's that? He said, call the AA. He went, what? He said, call the AA. And they did. And I will remember, I used to work in the box office on the front there, and I always remember this AA van pulling in, and this engineer getting out of his car, walking backwards and forwards, looking for this 1950s car parked in King Street, which of course it wasn't there. So I came out of the glass door and said, excuse me, I said, I think you need to follow me this way. He said, really? I said, come through. And he said, bloody hell. So I said, it's on stage. So he came in, fixed it, which was fantastic. Of course, he filled in his report, took it back to head office. Lovely head office of the AA said, this is a great press story. They sent it to the national press, and the next day, the AA comes to the rescue of the Bristol Open Doors. We got national press coverage from that wonderful production. But there's another success story that carries on with the connection to Arthur Miller, because Arthur Miller, when he left us after coming alongside Paul Elman, who directed that show, went back to the States because he stood up. I remember him on the Cooper's Gallery saying to Paul and myself, he said, I'm going back to the States now because they're making a film version of The Crucible. Fantastic. He said, I didn't know who they're casting. Of course, who did they cast as the main part of John Proctor? Somebody who started his career here. One of the best actors this country has ever produced, one of the top actors ever to come out of the Bristol Open Doors School. The only actor who has won the best Oscar winner 3 times, and that's Daniel Day-Lewis. And of course, while he was making that film, he met Rebecca Miller, Arthur Miller's daughter from his second marriage, and are to this day very, very happily married. So it's a connection from 1950s right the way through, the Miller connection as I like to call it. So Bristol Vic, world-class theatre made in Bristol. When you come and see a show here at the Bristol Vic, we have a wonderful production of Touching the Void at the moment, currently directed by our current artistic director Tom Morris, which is amazing. Everything you see here on this stage, very, very proud of the fact Bristol Vic, world-class theatre made in Bristol, because the costumes, the scenery, the lighting, everything here is made on site, and that's something we're very, very proud of. And for me, I have lots of enthusiasm about it because I've been many, many years here, and you go on an incredible journey working here because you're all, whatever you work as a member of the box office, front of house team, you're all encouraged to be part of that creative process. And for me, it's great when Tom comes in and tells us the season, and then you see all that work being created from the design, the actors coming in, rehearsing it here, coming on here and performing, and you can see a show develop. And that's one of the things I think Bristol Open has strived for very, very successfully since its creation. It's great to do the classics. I mean, when you look back at our 250th birthday 2 years ago, Tom directed The Crucible here, which was great. And then we had Richard Eyre come here to direct Jeremy Irons and Leslie Manville in Long Day's Journey into Night. And then for me, what ticked all the boxes was The Grinning Man. That was incredible, because it was a new piece of work, new writing, very wonderful musical, and it was so successful. In fact, Long Day's Journey into Night and The Grinning Man, well, The Grinning Man transferred into London, into the West End, as did Long Day's Journey to Night, and that went on to Broadway. I don't think we've not seen the last of The Grinning Man yet. It was the most wonderful show, very creative and new, and that's one thing I think Bristol Vic has been so strong in creating, is bringing in new talent. In the 35 years I've worked here, You've seen people come in. I mean, Jude Kelly came here as Associate Director. She went on to run the West Yorkshire Playhouse. Matthew Warchus, ironically, who runs the Old Vic in London now. I remember him as the training director underneath Paul Unwin here. So it's not just actors, it's stage managers, people that work here. A bit of the magic rubs off on you, and you just go on then to have the most incredible careers. Right, without further ado, that's a brief look at history. There's lots to talk about, but you've got a lot to see. So the 25 people that are with me now, I'm going to walk you through so you can actually stand on the thrust of the stage. We're going to go back this way, so if you just allow me to lead the way. So, you can follow me this way to the dress circle. Up here through the centre. And we're going to go on to the side. So you can stand on the thrust. I'm going to fill. When you come on here, if you stand to the back here, this is great that they put the thrust stage back on, because as a performer, I always think of my very dear friend Chris Harris, who was the most wonderful pantomime day. I mean, Chris was so paramount in saving this company through his work in history. He would have loved this, because as a performer, that having this thrust here, you just walk through now. As you come forward, you, the audience, come towards you, so it gives you that very intimate position. Right. Just stand to the back and just walk forward. And it really brings you as a performer very, very close to the audience. It really does. So if you look up there, you will see the upper circle and the gallery. Absolutely amazing. And of course behind us, the safety curtain. Well, we always have to show the safety curtain, bring that in. And we have the set hidden behind there, which is currently in previews. And has its press knife on the preview. So you have seen it.